Everyone, welcome to eLearnChat, where it's all about learning. And today it's all about mics. This is a Mics for eLearning special. Today we're going to compare two different mics, a large diaphragm condenser mic with a small earset mic. Take a listen to the differences and see what you could use them both for. Joining me will be Harold Muliadi in a moment, and here we go. This show is sponsored by Relate Corporation. Visit us at www.relatecasts.net. Thanks. And we are back, joined by Harold. How you doing, Harold?
I'm doing pretty good, Rick.
Now, I am on the blue baby bottle, the blue microphone baby bottle. This is patterned after their big bottle microphone. It is a large diaphragm condenser microphone. It does require 48-volt phantom power. And it has two switches. It's got a low-pass filter, meaning it gets rid of sound or frequencies that are higher than 80 hertz. And it also has a 20 dB pad, 20 decibel pad, meaning it makes the mic input 20 decibels lower. And that's quite a bit. So if you're in a very loud area, you won't actually, that won't affect the mic too badly. But anyway, you're hearing what this sounds like. It's a really nice condenser microphone. It'll set you back about $400. Well worth the money. If you only have money for a mic like this, spend it. This is worth it. Harold, on the other hand, what mic are you on?
So I am on the DPA Define Directional earset microphone. And despite the looks, people tend to think bigger, more impressive, more expensive. This is actually a more expensive mic than the baby bottle that Rick's got over there at in the vicinity of $200 more. And it's got a tiny capsule in here, as you can probably guess. It's much smaller, but it has a pretty good sound, and it gives you the advantage of, like all earset microphones, you're able to move your head around, and it doesn't change the sound of your voice very much while you're doing so.
Yeah, in fact, if you're doing any kind of e-learning or simulations or demonstrations, marketing, whatever, that's a very good mic to have on, because as you move, nothing changes. You don't lose. Like, for example, if I'm doing a simulation with this mic and I start looking over there, or I look up, or I look to the side, or I look down, you probably will notice that there were differences in my volume. Also, there's one thing you can't really do on one of the Defines or any of those earset mics, or any mic that's really on your head. You can't get closer and give it this proximity effect like I'm doing right now. So right over here, I'm proximity effect. I'm very close to the capsule, and here I'm back to normal. You notice the difference. It doesn't change the tonality very much on this mic, but it makes it louder. You can't do that with a capsule. You can't grab it and go, "Argh!" You could, but it would be very uncomfortable, and it would probably distort greatly.
You can technically do that, but part of the purpose of the earset mic is to stay at the same distance and angle relative to your mouth. So there are certain applications. For example, if you're doing, say, voiceover or rather, book narration, then you might want to do create effects, different moods and tones by moving in and out from your mic, and you can't quite do that with something like this.
Yeah, for example, if I come in and I do that kind of that destruction of the Moody Blues kind of thing, where I say, breathe deep, the gathering gloom, watch lights fade from every room, lonely man cries for love and has none, cold-hearted orb that rules the night. I'm playing with the proximity, going in and out to give it a little different emphasis. That you can't do on a small earset microphone. But it's great for other things. For example, public speaking, presentations, marketing demos. And both of you notice sound pretty loud. Harold?
Yeah, and part of that is once you've got a mic hooked up to other audio equipment that's of good quality and gives you good features and options, then right now we're using both of these. They're ultimately coming through to a PreSonus Studio Live 16 mixer, But for example, the baby bottle over there, it's going through a art voice channel vocal processor. And I've also got some effects and compression going on my DPA over here in the PreSonus mixer itself.
So you can get a lot out of these microphones with just a little bit of gear, knowing how to use them, and choosing the right mic. A lot of people think one mic is all you ever need. I would say you need at least 2 mics, depending on what you're doing, and maybe 3. And frankly, 20 is good too. But if you're going to have 1, 2, or 3, you'd probably be set for everything you could ever need. Don't skimp on microphone prices, even though if you have the budget, spend a little bit more. You know, we were talking earlier before the show that I think the sweet spot for a lot of microphones is somewhere between $300 and $400. You don't have to spend thousands. Will you notice a big difference on the $1,000 microphones? Not necessarily. A lot of it has to do with what kind of preamplifier you have, or what kind of effects processor, like a compressor, a limiter, and a gate. And that makes it kind of equalizes bad mics and good mics. So you don't need to spend a fortune. Now, there is a big difference between a $100 mic usually and about a $300 or $400 mic. It's noticeable. But between the $300 and $400 and the $1,000, not so much. In fact, in many cases, you can't tell the difference. So
there's another very important part of the equation, which is sort of the first step that when we're thinking about audio, we do, but a lot of people might not know that if they're new to it, and that is your room must be fit for voice and for audio in the first place. If you've got a noisy room or a room where the walls are causing echoes, then you're going to end up with honestly pretty crummy audio, even if you have expensive equipment.
Yeah, now if you are in a room that's not very well treated for audio, this kind of mic that I'm on won't work that well. It's going to be noisy. However, the ear set mic, like the Define that Harold is on, will be still pretty good. It'll pick up a little room noise, but not that much, because it's very close to his mouth where the pattern is, whereas this one has a bigger pattern, and it will pick up the reflections as sound bounces off walls, desks, floors, ceilings. It's pretty amazing what gets into a microphone sometimes. So keep that in mind. You know, the bigger the mic, the quieter the room many times.
Yeah, and I think part of the takeaway is you probably only need 1 or 2 mics, but you want to know what situation you need them for, because mics are quite specialized for different situations. Here at Relate, we have quite a few microphones, but that's because we have a lot of different contexts in which we need microphones. We have these more interview type situations where we use either these, or a lot of times we'll have people on lavalier mics. We have more when we record things that are more events, we might be using shotgun mics, or again, in combination oftentimes with a lavalier or something like that. And there are just a lot of different situations where you may find a certain type of mic is more specialized and is going to give you a better sound.
Yeah, for example, let's say you want a mic that sounds just a little bit grittier, or it sounds stronger. You may want a dynamic mic. For example, if you're listening to radio, AM radio, you need a mic that cuts through the noise. Whereas in FM radio, you need for example, this would be a pretty good FM mic. But for AM, I would probably put on one of my dynamic microphones, like the Electro Voice RE27ND, or the RE320, or the RE20. Any one of those would give it a really nice sound on AM. And they also work very well for FM. But some of these mics don't pop out as well. And by popping out means they're not as audible. You can't hear them as well if you're driving, because the frequencies are a little stronger on the dynamic mic. So those are all things to consider. But you had a good chance to listen to 2 different mics for 2 different types of work, and both are very good mics. And by the way, the DPA, like he said, $600. This one is about $400. Either way, you're getting a good mic, and spend at least a couple of $100 on a good preamplifier. One of the best ones out there is probably the Scarlett 2i2 Mark II. That's 2 inputs, 2 outputs, and it's the second version of it, or maybe it's a third. I think there's a Mark II. Great little device for about $200. Really sounds good. Anyway, that's it for Mics for eLearning today. I am Rick Zanotti, joined by Harold Muliadi, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.